Because what happens is when we think about there's not enough time, I've got all of this to do, and I don't know if I'm going to get it done in time.
So that's
all
of course
those
what's happening is that in the moment
that you think of, I'm not going to have,
of course,
as you
I'm going to
know,
finish early,
what's going to be
your
too
prefrontal
easy,
cortex is starting to go
or
offline,
I'm not going to have enough to do.
in the best state for achieving any
your
of it.
brain is in that moment referring to your childhood
And what that will
conditioning,
do is
that's
it'll give you
dangerous, and
more
then pumping stress
stickability.
chemicals into your
You'll
system. You'll be able to last for longer because you won't have stress chemicals in your system. All right, welcome back everyone. Welcome to live support with Odille for changing negative implicit childhood memories using the Remmert Method. We've created this forum for those who've watched our YouTube videos or read our book and need personal help with using the techniques to get changes, but aren't in a position to do one-to-one sessions. If you're new to the Remmert Method, be sure to check the links in the description of this post. And if you'd like to submit a question or you'd like me to work with you in the room, in this Zoom room, you can find the link for the details on that in the description of this video as well. All right, so first up today, we have Swasti. Hi, Swasti.
Hi.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm okay, thank you. I have a question about like finding things really hard, like everything, and like procrastinating everything. It's a very general topic, but it's like background anxiety, and just like nothing seems easy right now, so I just end up procrastinating everything, and I have this background thing of like it's hard to get stuff, it's like I'm finding it very hard to get things right now, and then anything good that comes in leaves like immediately. It's only temporary.
Okay, so first of all, how do you know that it's hard to get something? It's hard to get things.
And I just feel that it's difficult to. It just feels difficult,
Mm-hmm. So can you give me an example?
Yeah, it's like sitting down trying to do something for like an hour. It just feels like the most impossible task in the world. And then splitting up, because like if I sit down for like half an hour and then, but if I'm still, like in the groove, then the timer cuts me off. So I've lost the state of like flow. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that now. So I'm like, I'll just carry on. But then like, it's always like the more breaks I take and then try to come back to something, it's impossible to do it. But my brain can't do things for 3 hours at a time.
Yes. Okay. So, and are there any tasks that you have been able to do for either taking breaks or for longer periods of time or whatever? In other words, are there any exceptions to that rule?
See, right now, no, but that's not always the case.
That's
it's just when I have like pressure and time constraints above my head. That's when it gets hard. Yeah,
that's it. Okay. And so when you think of doing a task, so you're going to sit down and do whatever you're going to do for an hour, or half an hour or 3 hours, whatever it is, what do you think of? So in other words, when you think I'm going to sit down and do this, where's your mind going?
Just how long everything's taking right now. And like I'm not even sure if I'll get it all done by the time I need to.
Okay. And so when you think of needing to get it done, so you're thinking of the whole thing and that there's not enough time?
Yeah, well, I have this weird contradiction going on, which is like I don't have enough to do and then I create more to do, right? And then I get stressed about how much I have to do. So
interesting.
It's just ongoing.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, so using, of course, starting off with the logical side of it, the conscious mind, and using cognitive thinking. What you want to do first of all is make sure that you have intellectually have a plan that works. So in other words, the amount of time you have, divided by the amount of time it takes to get certain things done, so that okay, I've got this amount of time to get that stage done. Then I've got this amount of time to get that step done, so that you've got just strategically, you've got a realistic plan.
Yeah.
So taking emotions out of it, you've got that. Fantastic. Then, considering you have that, so you've got a plan, now you don't want to be looking at the whole plan at once. You want to look at just the one step. So in other words, when you think of sitting down to do whatever you're going to do, make sure that you're keeping your mind on just that. So, and you can even say to yourself, I don't have to think about anything else. I only have to do this one thing. Because what happens is when we think about, there's not enough time, I've got all of this to do, and I don't know if I'm going to get it done in time, all of those are connections between neurons that are producing stress chemicals. And of course, as you know, that means your prefrontal cortex is starting to go offline, and you're not in the best state for achieving any of it. So it's an untrained dog that keeps running after the rabbit. Bring it to heel. So as soon as your mind starts going, oh, what about this and that? Answer yourself as if you were answering someone else. So, say to yourself, it's okay. I don't have to think about that right now. All I have to do is this one thing. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest bit. It's like, I always make a big grand plan, and it's very realistic. It really is. But then because of like all of the emotion that gets in the way and the amount of meaning that's given to it.
Yes.
It doesn't carry
that's
through.
What we want to change. That's it. Okay. So on a logical level, just using the conscious mind, you're going to use that you're going to answer yourself and direct so take control and go, I don't have to think of anything else. I have to do this one thing. That's all I have to do right now. And what that will do is it'll give you more stickability. You'll be able to last for longer because you won't have stress chemicals in your system. Okay, so, and I mean, bearing in mind, considering you have, everything you've achieved with stress chemicals in your system, can you imagine how amazing you're going to be and how quick and easy everything's going to be when you don't have stress chemicals in your system? So encourage yourself with that. Think of yourself, wow, I must be pretty good to have been able to do what I've done with this handicap of stress chemicals.
Yeah.
Right? So really keep reminding yourself of that to encourage yourself. So that's that. And then, of course, now let's look at references, because that's, of course, where it's coming from. So childhood references. So let's pretend that you do manage to just sit down and do one thing at a time. You get the thing done, and you actually get it done quicker than you were expecting. And then you move on to the next thing and so on. And so you finish the work you have to do early. How would that feel?
Yeah, no.
I figured. So now let's look at it logically. If you did finish early, it would mean you have time to relax, you have time to have fun, you have time to do other things. So logically, it should feel good, right? Would you agree with that? Okay, good. Yeah. So now we want to look for those references that are contradicting it. So let's say you finish early and you say it wouldn't feel good. In what way would it not feel good? How would you feel?
It's again, like, I feel like I always need things to do. Like, I'm not using my time wisely. I'm wasting away the day.
Oh, very good. So
That's not true. That's not true.
Yeah, but let's dive into that kind of construct there. So what's wrong with wasting away the day, or not using your time wisely? What's wrong with that?
It's just the family, like tradition of no rest.
Yeah, very good. Good job. And so that's, of course, what's happening is that in the moment that you think of, I'm not going to have, I'm going to finish early, or it's going to be too easy, or I'm not going to have enough to do. Your brain is in that moment referring to your childhood conditioning that's dangerous, and then pumping stress chemicals into your system. So when you think of your childhood, do you have memories of your parents relaxing and not doing anything?
Yeah, so basically I was doing this, and I've obviously done this a lot of times, but then I realized that sitting down and doing nothing is boring. So I created activities, and I only did that recently, but I don't know if that's I don't know what that's doing, you know.
Okay.
So I'm like, sitting down and chilling. I'm like, whenever I would practice those memories, I was like, that's so boring. So I was like, oh, my dad is playing cricket because he likes that. My mom is doing art because she likes that. You know?
So they're still doing activities.
They're still doing stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what we want to do is we want to swing right the other way first.
Okay.
And have them enjoying just being.
Okay.
So give them a couple of deck chairs outside, or a hammock, or a nice, some sort of outside area, and it's a beautiful day, and they've got something to drink, and they're just watching the birds or chatting quietly, and it's got this very laid back, lazy feeling. Can you imagine that?
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
I can feel that. Yeah.
Good. Very good. And does it feel good?
Yeah, it's like a slow Sunday morning vibe.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes, very good. And then what you might want to add in there is that either one of them or someone else says, oh, but shouldn't we be doing something? And then the other one says, no, it's fine. There's nothing urgent. It's okay to relax.
Okay.
How would that feel?
So this is amongst my parents, like them having a conversation.
Yes, you can have the two of them, or you can have someone else coming in. It could even be you saying, oh, shouldn't we be doing something? And they reassure you and say, no, it's okay. There's nothing urgent. It's okay to relax. It's important to relax. So they are teaching you what you need to know now.
Yeah.
Teaching you and demonstrating it.
Yeah, and then I can go join them.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So they invite you to come sit down and relax. Isn't it a gorgeous day? And so the focus is on the feeling, the physical feeling of, this is so nice to just sit here. And so your focus is on the physical sensation of relaxing and feeling good, as opposed to needing to do something or listen to something or watch something in order to feel good.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I can imagine like this dissolving ball of like doing.
Good.
Like, the chaos is going away.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's perfect. Yes, good job. Very good. So, good job, Swasti. So practice that scene and establish it, and you can change it and add things, to make it feel really, really strong, really good. Those good feelings really strong. And then once that's established, then think about the next step you need to do and then think about finishing early, getting things done and early, and notice how that feels. So we can test that right now. So now when you think of, let's say you're going to finish all of your work early, how would that feel?
Now it feels good. Yeah.
Good. Very good. And now, of course, you'll still want to practice that, of course, because that's new. That new memory is still new. So you want to practice it and establish it to make sure that that sticks. All right. Yeah. And so keep practicing that. And then whenever you think of, I'm going to get that work done, play that new memory of your parents and everything before you sit down to work, whenever you think of work, and then also before you sit down to actually start working. And during your working, while you're busy, every now and then, you can think of that. Oh, yeah, that's nice. And definitely when you take a break.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah. Yes. So, and I have like another similar question to this. So my brain always needs like a bit of structure. So I always plan things like list wise, and then split them according to days and like my own deadlines and stuff. it is very it is very organized, but it's like hyper organized to the point where I keep checking it again and again. And then it's like the structure messes with my head because that takes up so much energy. Like, making sure it's there, the hypervigilance of it.
Okay.
That's what happens in between, like when I'm not focusing on the thing in the moment, that's where my mind is also going to.
Right. Okay. And so let's start with the logical side. You've checked the structure works, you're happy with it.
Yeah, because my mind works in one at a time. So I'm only doing one thing at a time, as in like one topic at a time. I can't mix them.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so that's okay. So you get into the flow of it and you get one thing done at a time. That's perfect. So let's pretend now that, so tell me first of all, when you check that structure, like you say, in between you're checking the structure, what is it you're checking for? What are you worried about?
That I'm on track.
To make sure you're on track.
And what's happening next.
Okay.
But I know what's happening next. So actually, this is the thing, like it makes no sense. I'm just checking it for the sake of doing it now.
All right. Yeah. And because so you've got stress chemicals in your system, and then when you check it, that's helping to bring the stress chemicals down as a coping skill.
Maybe, yeah.
But the stress chemicals are not coming from now. They're coming from childhood. So when you think of let's think about that now, that checking what's next in case you've made a mistake or whatever that is. You got that feeling now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And what's the first thing that comes to mind as you feel that feeling?
Well, the visual image is the village in India, but I don't know what about. It was just chaotic.
Oh, yes, that makes sense. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so you got this chaotic village. What we want to do is make the village organized. Okay, so how does the chaotic village feel, first of all? So you think of the chaotic village, how does that feel?
Chaotic.
And how does chaotic feel for you?
It's just like so much going on, overwhelmed.
That's it. So what's happening now is you've got your work organized, but your brain is still referring to the chaotic village, and it's trying to make your experience right now feel safe, but you've got this noise going on in the background of the chaotic village. So it's never going to, nothing you do now is going to change that. You have to change that.
Okay.
All right, so let's make the village organized. So as you think of that village, what would feel good? How would you like that village to be?
I was just trying to see it now because there are no normal roads and no normal like rules of the road. So there's just motorbikes everywhere and cars and trucks everywhere. So having like an actual road system like in the UK.
Let's do
people
that.
walk on paths.
There you go. So let's make some beautiful roads. They're clean and they're in great condition. They're safe, and people are driving safely and normally, and people are walking on pavements, so they're not in the middle of the road. That kind of thing. Can you imagine that?
I don't know, that's going to take a lot of overriding.
Okay, so let's look at that. So as you try to imagine that, what are you seeing or thinking of or feeling or hearing?
It's because I have a very recent memory of it because I went to India in December. Right. So like I know exactly what it looks like, and I repeat it in my head again and again and again. Because it's the memory.
Right.
So just that is all coming up.
Okay, so let's put that aside for the moment, and let's go to your childhood. And I want you to think of one scene where how you know that these roads are the way they were. So you're looking at you're in a particular place and you're seeing the roads or you're seeing the traffic. What's happening?
Yeah, it was like from our house we can cross the road safely. Like from the point you step out.
Okay.
It's like danger everywhere.
Okay, so let's start there.
Okay.
So you've got your house and there's a road
Mhm.
right outside the house.
Mhm.
Okay, so what I want you to do is put a crossing right there, pedestrian crossing.
Okay.
And traffic lights.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's a proper tarred road and it's got a pedestrian crossing, the zebra crossing, and traffic lights. In fact, it's got that, but let's add a lollipop person as well.
Mhm.
So you've got a person there with the sign that they use for schools that makes the traffic stop and allows you to cross. How would that be?
Yeah, that feels safe.
Good. And make that lollipop person really lovely. So they're very smiley and happy and fun and kind, and they've got a very safe feeling about them.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Good. And now I want you to imagine you walk out of your house and immediately the lollipop person gets their lollipop and they go and stand, they stop the traffic, they stand in the middle and they help you cross and they allow you to cross. And how would that feel?
Great. Yeah.
Good. Very good. So that's one piece. So now when you cross the road, what else is there? What else do you see?
Yeah. There was just like this open kind of like sewage, kind of like running, like vile. So that's kind of like opposite the road that we just crossed now. There's that.
All right, let's sort that out. So I want you to imagine that this big kind of bulldozer thing comes along and covers that up. So that's completely covered up, and they build a nice park on top of it. Well, how would that feel?
That's nice. Yeah.
Good, very good. So now instead of that, so they've covered it up, they've poured concrete on it, and now they've put like a nice lawn and trees and playthings, what you call your playground things, maybe a nice lake or a pond.
Okay.
Would that feel good?
Yes.
Very good. And now I want you to see if you can, so I want you to raise off the ground. So you're going to go straight up in the air and look down. You're going to have an aerial view of the village now. And I want you to see if you can imagine it in a grid. So, you know, like New York is, and a lot of American big cities are built in a grid. So they've got roads going that way and that way. There's no higgledy-piggledy things.
No. Yeah.
All right. And those roads are all proper tarred roads with traffic lights, lollipop people. Everything looks very clean and organized. And you can see cars coming along and stopping and people crossing, and the other cars go and then these go. Can you see it all working like clockwork? It's all perfectly organized and slow.
Yes, but I still see like all the dust and dirt.
Okay, let's fix that. I want you to imagine that somebody comes along with a big vacuum cleaner thing. And you know the attachment that you use for a vacuum cleaner to clean the corners and things. They got one of those, but it's very big. And they switch it on and all the dust and dirt from the whole village goes into that vacuum cleaner. And what you're left with is this clean, clear air.
Okay. Yes.
Can you imagine that?
Yes, I can see that.
Good. And how does that feel?
Good. I think I need to practice that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. And so when you're practicing these, as you imagine it, if you notice what comes up, if in other words, if you start thinking about it, you start practicing it and something comes up that contradicts it, then of course change that.
Okay.
All right. And so practice having that aerial view of the village being perfectly designed, perfectly organized, and everyone moves very slowly and deliberately and calmly. So it's very predictable It's like a clockwork thing.
Okay.
All right. And you can exaggerate that aspect of it so that it feels very dependable, very safe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah, I like that.
Good. Very good. And that makes so much sense. Considering what's going on for you now.
Mm-hmm.
So establish that, and then so now let's think about your work. And so you're going to sit down to work. How do you feel?
I feel like I instantly get that hit of kind of like stress, but that's because that's always been, it's been like that for a while.
Okay.
That's what I've associated with it now.
Yes, and that makes sense as well. So you're going to establish that those new memories, the new memories of your parents relaxing and all of that, the new organized clockwork village.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then as you think about your work and you get that hit of stress chemicals, answer it by immediately playing one of those memories. Okay. Your parents relaxing, come and join us, everything's fine, and the clockwork village.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. Yes.
And I would do this before you actually sit down. I would think about, like we just did now. Mm-hmm. And you think about the work, notice what happens, and play the thing so that you're retraining your brain. You're reconnecting, you're making new connections there.
Okay.
So that when you think about sitting down to work, you have the feeling of your parents relaxing and that organized clockwork village where it's safe. Okay. Make sense?
Yes, makes sense. Okay.
Good. Very good, Swasti. So how do you feel now?
I feel good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you for your questions. All right. And then I have 2 questions sent in by email. So the first one is, I wanted to address my son's OCD issue. I don't know if it's got worse because he can feel that I've been struggling with anxiety too lately. I've been impatient with him several times, and I feel guilty afterwards because he will say, but I thought you said I could talk to you about this, and now you're saying I can't. It breaks my heart that I've given him the impression that it's not safe to speak to me about it. When I dig deep, the feeling I get is that he's just dumping on me. He's just using me to feel better. This resonates with the feeling I've grown up with my mom. As an adult, she often would walk into my kitchen in the morning. We live in a sort of duplex that's separated by a door, and without any consideration for my feelings, she would just start going off about my father or whoever else she was mad at and dump out all her emotions on me. And then after getting it all out, she'd exhale and then say, okay, bye. I noticed I then would be in a bad mood towards my children afterwards, like her energy had been transferred to me. Like I was a doormat that she dusted her feet on and then would just leave. I felt so resentful, bitter, and disrespected. I finally spoke up and told her to stop doing that, which was hard for me to do, and she has stopped since. But it's also the same feeling I felt with my husband and his emotions. I felt he would offload and dump on me when he'd be angry, which we have worked through, and he no longer does it. But now I feel it with my son. I don't have childhood memories of my mom doing this. I don't have many conscious childhood memories, but my assumption is that if she did it in my adulthood, chances are she did this when I was a child too. I'd love your feedback on the best way to change these memories. So well done for reaching out for help with this. And first of all, you're right that your son is bound to be affected by your anxiety. And although it's good for you to be aware of that so that you understand and you know what's going on and remind yourself of it, there's no need to feel guilty. So you're always doing the best you can with the childhood references you have at the time. And it's the child in you who is being impatient with him. So you need to take care of that child in you in order to be able to take care of him. And this is effectively two anxious children trying to cope together. So now the goal is for the adult you to be able to help that child in you feel safe and valued first, and then you'll be able to do the same for your son. So here are 3 steps to take. So first of all, use the superpower to pre-pave your days and your interactions with your son in particular. And I know you already have it, but for those who don't, I'll put a link to the superpower book in the description of this video. So then the next step, when you're starting to feel a little impatient, imagine pressing pause in your mind and give that little you a hug. Imagine hugging the child in you. And if you can, play a moment from a new childhood memory with your parents, your mum just hugging you and telling you everything's okay and she loves you, for example. And then thirdly, well done for setting that boundary with your mother as an adult. So that's good. And the reason that even though she stopped doing that behavior, that feeling continued for you and you just transferred it to your husband, unconsciously, of course, transferred it to your husband and then to your son, is because it's not coming from now. So your experiences as an adult with your mother, with your husband, and with your son are all being created from the childhood references. And if your son were to also stop that behavior now, that feeling would still continue by being transferred to something else or someone else in your life. In other words, your brain would strive to keep you in alignment with that feeling through your interaction with another person or a situation or circumstances. And so that's why it's so important to change the childhood memories. Now, I know you said you don't have memories of your childhood childhood memories of your mother displaying that same behavior, but you did mention, you said, this resonates with the feeling I've grown up with my mom. So ask yourself, when you say this feeling the feeling I've grown up with my mom, how do you know you experienced that feeling when you were growing up? And it's okay if there's no actual memories, just ask yourself that question and see if anything comes, even though it may be a different topic. So in other words, it may not have been about your mother walking into a room and complaining about other people. It may be something else entirely, but that same feeling of being dumped on. And you said and that feeling of someone just using me to feel better. So where in your childhood did you have that feeling of someone just using you to feel better or being dumped on? As I say, maybe a different topic. And then another thing I would suggest is creating a new childhood stepping stone memory of you setting the same kind of boundary you set up with your mother as an adult regarding walking into your kitchen and complaining without any regard for your feelings. So, for example, create a new memory from scratch of your mother starting to dump on you emotionally, and give that little you a magic wand. And then she uses that magic wand to freeze your mother, and then tell her that this is unacceptable, and then allow that little you to feel empowered and safe enough to be able to set that boundary and express what she wants and needs. Then make sure that your mother is able to see it from your perspective, and that she's apologetic and kind and compassionate and respectful to that little you. And then create a final memory of your mother walking into a room and asking you how you're doing, how you're feeling. And she's more interested in how you're feeling than in telling you what she's feeling. So make sure that she's always calm and happy and confident and loves spending time listening to you and supporting you. And make sure that you amp up those good feelings so that they're really strong, and practice until it's established. And then moving forward, whenever you find yourself starting to feel impatient with your son, Immediately imagine hugging the little you and play just a short moment in time of your mother being kind, patient, and supportive of you and putting you first, putting your feelings first. So I hope that helps, but of course, let me know if you need more suggestions or help with that. And then thirdly for today, we have another question. And this question is, can we be downloading new beliefs and information about the world as an adult with the experiences we have currently? For example, can an adult who has no childhood references with health worries develop health anxiety after seeing their friend get sick? Or can an adult develop a fear of heights, for example, that isn't tied to a childhood reference, or does it always tie back to a childhood reference? It's a great question. And the answer is that we can't experience anything for which we don't already have a reference. But the key is that the reference isn't always logical or obvious to the conscious mind. So taking those examples you've given, first the health anxiety example. As the adult's brain registers the data regarding their friend getting sick, so what they see, what they hear, and so on, their brain is in every moment comparing that data to implicit memories from childhood experiences to determine what this experience in this moment as an adult means. Now, they may not have experienced anyone being sick when they were a child, but they may have experienced a feeling of uncertainty or fear, and perhaps so nothing necessarily to do with sickness, but maybe to do with their parents arguing, or being bullied in school, or a parent threatening to leave, or the death of a pet or a family member. So feelings of uncertainty or fear around created in those experiences. And then as their brain registers the uncertainty of their friend's illness, it may connect that with the uncertainty of, for example, whether their parent will leave or not, as the closest reference for that uncertainty of their friend being ill. So a friend being ill will mean something different to different people with different childhood references. Each person's brain is constantly comparing data from the current moment to implicit memories from childhood to find the closest match, not necessarily an exact match. And the matches will usually be based on how they're feeling, the chemical state, rather than logical data. So the brain will then produce the same chemical response in the experience with the friend that it did in the threat of the parent leaving, for example. The conscious mind is only aware of what's happening in this moment, which is the friend's illness, but the feelings which are caused by the chemicals triggered by the unconscious part of the brain are coming from the reference of the threat of a parent leaving. Then moving forward, the brain may then connect the friend's illness with that same chemical response, with the additional help of the conscious mind giving meaning to it. In other words, the conscious mind, using logic and reason, gives the meaning to the feelings that it's because of the friend's illness. And as those neurons connect, so thoughts are connections between neurons in the neocortex, they trigger more of those stress chemicals, perpetuating the feelings. And the more this is repeated, which is the unconscious part of the brain referring to the childhood memories and triggering those stress chemicals, along with the conscious mind's contributions of the thoughts about the illness and the thoughts that these feelings are about the illness, the more those stress chemicals are amped up, and the brain is adding more and more connections between illness and that particular combination of stress chemicals that creates the sensations we recognize as anxiety I'm feeling anxious. And then using your second example, so the fear of heights, even though there may be no experience with heights in the person's childhood, again, the brain is constantly comparing current data from stimuli, so what we're seeing, hearing, feeling, and so on in this moment, with the closest match from implicit memory. So as that person gets to the top of the ladder, for example, and looks down, their brain is comparing their current experience, including the emotional state they were in before they started climbing, along with other experiences that have been going on in their life at that time, with implicit memory from childhood. And it may be that the closest match for being up on that ladder is standing in front of the class being berated or humiliated by a teacher, or being on stage in a school play and forgetting their words and being teased by the other children, or being lost in a shopping mall. So in these cases, it's nothing to do with heights. It's to do with being alone and vulnerable, and therefore in danger. And being, on that ladder on their own, the brain may just connect that something about that experience with those other experiences. So the brain then triggers the same stress chemicals that were produced in those childhood experiences of being alone and vulnerable. And the conscious mind makes the connection between that feeling of fear and being in danger created by the stress chemicals and the height as they look down from the ladder. And then again, the conscious mind thinks about the height while registering the fear. And those thoughts, those connections between neurons trigger more of the same stress chemicals, perpetuating the fear. And so again, the more this is repeated, the unconscious part of the brain referring to the childhood memories and triggering those stress chemicals, along with the conscious mind's contribution of the thoughts about heights and the fear that they're feeling, the more those stress chemicals are amped up, and the brain is adding more and more connections between heights and that combination of stress chemicals that creates the sensations we recognize as fear. So I hope that clarifies, I hope that answers the question, but let me know if you need more clarification on that. All right, everyone. So that's the end for today. And I will see you again next week. If you'd like to send in your question, or if you'd like me to work with you in the Zoom room in one of these sessions, check the link in the description of this video for details on that. All right. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye-bye now.